Inkosi busiphana webanga. Tabani. Oh. Napimba. Tabani. Amen. Isihloko sale nkonzo namhlanje sithi Ujehova Nenkolo Yobunazaretha.
Today's topic is Yahweh and the Nazareth faith.
Ngikholwa ukuthi inkolo yobunazaretha inkolo ebaluleke kakhulu kunazo zonke inkolo emhlabeni.
I believe that the Nazareth faith is more significant than other faiths in the whole world.
Ngoba inkolo eyalethwa uNkulunkulu umdali wezulu uqobo lakhe wehla ezulwini weza la emhlabeni wayiletha yithi.
Because it is a faith that was brought down by God, the creator of heaven and earth.
Inkolo yobuKristu inkolo eyakhiwa ngabantu.
The Christian faith is a faith that was created by people.
Okuseqinisweni yakhelwa ukuthi iqede inkolo yobuNazaretha yayiqeda.
And in truth it was created to destroy the Nazareth faith, and it did achieve that.
Inkolo yobu-Islam inkolo eyalethwa emhlabeni ingilosi.
Islam is a faith that was brought on earth by an angel
Eletha esizweni sama-Arab.
to the nation of Arabs.
Ibalulekile ngoba yalethwa ingilosi eyayivela ezulwini.
It is important because it was brought down by an angel which came from heaven.
Kodwa ayifani nobuNazaretha ngoba kwalethwa uNkulunkulu.
But it is different from the Nazareth faith because it was brought down by God.
Okuseqinisweni inkolo yobuSulumane noma yobuMuslim yakhelwe phezu kwenkolo kaJehova eyobuNazaretha.
In truth, Islam is built or pillared upon the Nazarite faith, which is God's faith.
Igama elithi uNazaretha lisuselwa egameni lesiHebheru elithi Nazir, elichaza ukuzahlukanisela uNkulunkulu.
The etymology of the word Nazarite comes from Hebrew, which is Nazarene, which means to set apart oneself for God.
UNazaretha umuntu ongcwele.
A Nazarite is a person who is holy.
Unemithetho emithathu ngaphezu kwemithetho eyayibekwe uNkulunkulu emenza ebe umuntu ongcwele.
And he is governed by 3 other laws that were set by God, which makes him holy.
Le mithetho oqala ukuba ushiye inwele zakho ungasikhunji inwele.
The first is that you should not shave your hair.
Esibili ukuthi ungaphuzi utshwala noma iwayini.
The second is that you should not consume alcohol or wine.
Esithathu ukuthi ungasithinti isidumbu somuntu ofile.
And the third one is that you should not touch a corpse.
eBhayibhelini siqala ukuzwa ngobuNazaretha kuNumeri 6.
In the Bible, we first come across the Nazareth faith in Numbers 6.
kuNumeri 6 uNkulunkulu wachaza ngobuNazaretha okuyisikhashana.
In Numbers 6, God spoke about a Nazareth vow that did not last for a long time. It was temporary.
Kwaku isifungo umuntu owayesenza kuNkulunkulu ukuthi esikhathini esithize ngizophila impilo yobuNazaretha.
It was a vow that was made by a person that for a particular time or a certain period they'd live under the Nazareth vow.
Bese kuthi uma sesiqedile leso sifungo bese buye futhi efane nabanye abantu.
And upon completion of that vow, he'd be like everybody else again.
Kodwa kwahamba uNkulunkulu wayeseletha abantu abangamaNazaretha kusukela ekuzalweni kwabo beze befa.
And it eventually came that God brought down Nazarites who were under the vow from birth.
Labo bantu sazi oqala uSamsoni bese kuba umprofeti uSamuel kwiTestament elidala.
The first people whom we know of is Samson and the prophet Samuel, who are found in the Old Testament.
Bese kuthi kwiNew Testament kube uJohane noJesu.
And in the New Testament it is John and Jesus, Yeshua.
Kwahamba lenkolo le Yobunazaretha yagcina isinama sects noma amabandla asuka kuyona ngoba base beyihumusha ngeindlela ezahlukene.
There then came a time where this Nazarite faith had sects because everybody had different interpretation of it.
Ngesikhathi sika Jesu ubuNazaretha kwase kwehlukene ngama sects.
During the time of Yeshua, the Nazarite faith had different sects.
Eswejwayele ukukhulunywa ngayo eBhayibhelini abaFarisi nabaSadusi bese kuba amaNazarenes.
And the most common ones in the Bible are the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Nazarenes.
Kodwa babekhona nabanye kodwa ngikhuluma ngalabo nje abakukhulunywa ngabo okukhulunywa ngabo eBhayibhelini.
Others also existed, but I'm just making mention of those that are found in the Bible.
uJesu waye engaphansi noma engumholi wale sect ebizwa kuthiwa iNazarene.
Yeshua was a leader or under the sect which was known as the Nazarenes.
Kodwa akucacisiwe lokho eBhayibhelini ngezathu engizobe ngichaza.
But that is not put out clearly in the Bible for reasons that are later explained.
Ukwazi ukufunda between the lines ukuthi kanti ngempela uJesu wayenguNazaretha.
You are just able to read between the lines that Yeshua was indeed a Nazarene.
Kodwa eincwadini zomlando kucaciswe kahle ukuthi uJesu wayenguNazaretha.
But in history books it is clearly put that he was a Nazarene.
eBhayibhelini ukuthola lokho ngoba ufunda incwadi yezenzo 25 verse 5.
In the Bible you find that in the book of Acts 24 verse 5.
Lapha kufundeka kanje ngokuba le ndoda siyifumene iyishinga ivusa ukwembuka phakathi kwabaJuda ezweni lonke iyinhloko yehlelo lamaNazaretha.
We have found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect.
Siyazi lapha kukhulunywa ngoPaul.
We are all aware that the person being spoken about here is Paul.
Siyazi ukuthi uPaul ngenkathi ephenduka eba umlandeli kaJesu ayikho isect owakwaba nayo ngaphandle ukuthi waba umpostoli kaJesu.
We know that when Paul converted, he was under the sect of Yeshua and he was an apostle.
Ngalokho-ke njengoba kuthiwa waye eyinhloko yehlelo lamaNazaretha kusobala ukuthi le nhloko yehlelo lamaNazaretha kwakade kuJesu.
By saying that he was the ringleader of the Nazarene faith, it is clear that this Nazarene faith was the one that was led by Yeshua.
Njengoba ngilapha njena ngiyinhloko yehlelo ebizwa kuthiwa iNazareth Church of God.
As I stand before you, I am the leader of a sect known as the Nazarite Church of God.
Imfundiso engiyifundisayo imfundiso yomprofeti Isaiah Shembe kuthola kuye.
The teachings that I teach are those of Prophet Isaiah Shembe, peace be upon him.
Nomprofeti Isaiah Shembe waye emholi wamaNazaretha.
The prophet Isaiah Shembe was also a leader of the Nazarites.
Ngamanye amazwi ngumholi oqhuba izimfundiso noma ibandla lomprofeti Isaiah Shembe.
In other words, I am a leader that is in continuation with the teachings of Prophet Isaiah Shembe, or the church that was founded by Prophet Isaiah Shembe.
No, Apostle Paul waye emholi webandla noma lenkolo eqhuba inkolo kaJesu.
The Apostle Paul was also a leader of a belief system that was led by Yeshua.
Ikho-ke ngithi ufunda between the lines ukuthi uJesu waye umholi wamaNazaretha, ubone ngoba lo owayemlandeli wakhe ubizwa ngokuthi waye umholi wamaNazaretha.
That is why I said that you can only read between the lines that Yeshua was a Nazarene, because the person who followed after him, which is Paul, was also a leader of the Nazarites.
Ngiyafisa ukuthi abantu abangamaNazaretha beyilalelisise lento engizobachazela yona ukuthi uJesu nabalandeli bakhe babe ngamaNazaretha.
I wish all people who are Nazarites to clearly listen to what I'm saying and be attentive to that when I explain that Yeshua and his apostles or his followers were Nazarites.
Ngenkathi abafundi bakaJesu bephuma eJerusalema beyoshumayela, kwaphuma amaNazaretha ayoshumayela.
When the disciples of Yeshua left Jerusalem, they left Jerusalem to preach as Nazarites.
And kwakuyisizwe samaJuda kuphela.
And they were only a nation of Jews or Judeans.
Ngiyafisa ukuba abantu abamnyama beyiqonde kahle lento ngoba baqhamuka sebengamaKristu kodwa bengaqondi ukuthi uKristu inkolo eyasuka kanjani.
I wish to explain this to black people because they just convert into Christianity and they do not know how Christianity was found.
Igama elithi Christian kuligama eliukwedelela ngesimisa kuyekuthiwa interrogatory.
The name Christian is a word that is derogatory.
And leli gama laqanjwa abalandeli bakaJesu eAntioch.
And it was given to the disciples of Yeshua in Antioch.
Uma ufunda izenzo 11 verse 26 kuthi kwasekwenzeka ukuba unyaka wonke bahlangane ebandleni befundisa abantu abaningi. Kwaqala eAntiochiya ukuthi abafundi noma amaNazaretha bathiwe amaKristu.
In Acts 11 verse 26 it says, "For a whole year Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught great numbers of people. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch."
Abalandeli bakaJesu ukuthi bebizwe kuthiwa amaKristu babebizwa abantu ababebedelela, hayi ukuthi bayiqamba bona.
The disciples of Yeshua were titled as Christians not by themselves but by people who were ridiculing them.
Ngamanye amazwi igama elithi ubuKristu alivelanga kuNkulunkulu.
So this word Christianity does not come from God.
Alivelanga kuJesu.
It did not come from Yeshua.
Alivelanga kubalandeli bakaJesu.
It did not come from those who followed Yeshua.
Kodwa livela ezitheni zabalandeli bakaJesu.
But it came from those who were the enemies of Christ, of Yeshua.
Uma uthatha i-dictionary ilokuza yeBhayibheli ichaza kahle ukuthi leli gama lavela ezitheni kunokuba livele kubangani babalandeli bakaJesu.
If you were to take the dictionary that explains aspects of the Bible, it clearly puts it out that this name Christianity came from the enemies of Christ rather than those who were friends of Christ.
Lavela ezitheni zabalandeli bakaJesu.
It came from the people who were the enemies of Christ's followers, Yeshua's followers.
Ngenkathi abalandeli bakaJesu bephuma beyoshumayela, babephuma ngoba emva kokuba uJesu esefile wavuka wayesekhuluma nabo kuMathewu 28 ukuthi leli ivangeli lakhe abahambe belishumayele ezizweni.
When the disciples of Yeshua left Jerusalem to preach, they had done that in accordance to the instruction that was given to them by Yeshua after he had risen.
Nempela ke base bayaphuma beyoshumayela ezizweni bungama Roma kunezi izizwe ezikhona, kodwa zonke lezo zizwe zaziholwa ama-Roma ngoba kwakune Roman Empire.
When they then went out to preach to Gentiles, which were mainly the Romans and the Italians, and the leaders of those Gentiles were the Roman Empire at the time.
Ngenkathi beyoshumayela bacabanga ukuthi laba abezizwe bayayimukela inkolo yabo.
When they went out to preach, they thought that the Gentiles had received their belief system that they were preaching to them.
Ngoba baphenduka.
Because they became converts.
Kodwa bathi mase bephendukile mase babaningi kunalaba abebashumayeza okwakungamaJuda.
And after they had converted, they became more in number than those who had converted them, which were the Judeans.
Kwase kuba ibona manje abalawula amaJuda ukuthi kufanele ukuthi lenkolo ihambe kanjani.
They then became the ones who dictated to the Judeans as to how this new faith should be carried out.
Kodwa okwaba kubi kakhulu ukuthi kwathi kusenjalo ngo-70 AD ama-Romans ahlasela amaJuda ubisa iJerusalem.
The worst that had happened is that in 70 AD the Romans went out to attack Judeans and they had destroyed Jerusalem.
Ngenkathi ama-Romans esehlasele iJerusalem babe sebayiqeda inkolo yamaNazaretha.
When they had went out to attack Jerusalem, they also destroyed the Nazarite faith.
Kwathi iJerusalem babaleka abapriest ababekuyona amaRoma ase ethatha abapriest babo babengayiwa amaJuda kwabayibona asebe ngamela iJerusalem.
When they had destroyed Jerusalem, the priests were Judeans, were scattered and ran away, and then they took their own priests who were not Judeans, and then they became the custodians of Jerusalem.
Kodwa kwangagcina lapho bathi besuka base bayithatha ikomkhulu lwenkolo yamaNazaretha base ikomkhulu ibase Rome.
It did not only end with that, but they moved the headquarters of the Nazarite faith, which was in Jerusalem, and moved it to Rome.
Ngenkathi sebeyimuve bayisa eRome base beqala ukwakha inkolo abayibiza ngokuthi ubuKristu.
And when they had succeeded in moving it to Rome, they then started creating a religion which was called Christianity.
Lenkolo ebuKristu iyona eyaqeda ubuNazaretha.
This new faith, which was Christianity, is the one that destroyed the Nazarite faith.
UbuKristu abuqedanga ubuNazaretha ngomlomo, kodwa abantu ababengamaNazaretha noma amaNazarenes babulawa.
The Christians did not just abolish the Nazarites by word of mouth, but they actually went out to kill people who were Nazarites.
uJesu engakahambe emhlabeni wawachazela amaJuda ukuthi azohlaselwa neJerusalem nebhiziso.
Before Yeshua had left the earth, he explained to the Judeans that they would be attacked by the Romans and destroyed.
Uma ufunda incwadi kaMathewu 24 verse 1 to 2 ifundeka kanje.
Reading the book of Matthew 24 verse 1 to 2 says,
Kuthe uJesu ephuma ethempelini wasondela abafundi bakhe ukumtshengisa izakhiwo zethempeli. Waphendula wathi kubo, anikuboni konke lokhu na? Ngiqinisile ngithi kini akuyi kushiwa lapha itshe phezu kwetshe elingenakudilizelwa phansi.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
Lesi kwakuyiprofethi sikaJesu esenzeka ngoba vele athi ama Romans ehlasela iJerusalem ayibhidliza ithempeli laseJerusalem.
This is a prophecy that came to life, because when the Romans came to Jerusalem, they did attack it and they destroyed the building of Jerusalem.
Kodwa uJesu wangasiyena oqala ukuprofetha ngokuthi kuyogcina lezi zizwe zenzeni esizweni samaHebheru.
But Yeshua was not the first one to prophesy that that is what would be done by the Romans to the nation of Judeans.
Uma ufunda incwadi yamaHubo 83 verse 3 to 4 ifundeka kanje.
The book of Hymns 83 verse
3 to 4.
Verse 3 to 4.
Ngobuqili benza uzungu ngabantu bakho. Becebisana ukulwa nabathukisiweyo bakho bethi wozani sibaqothule bengabe besaba isizwe negama likaIsrael lingabe lisakhumbula.
With cunning they conspire against your people, they plot against those you cherish. Come, they say, let us destroy them as a nation, so that Israel's name is remembered no more.
Nangambela emva kokuba ama Romans ehlangene nezizwe lezi ezinye bayidestroy babuqeda uHebheru. Namhlanje ngeke ukwazi ukukhomba ukuthi nanti iHebheru noma nangumJuda lo wayeseJerusalem.
And indeed, after the Romans had came together with other nations, they destroyed the nations of Jews, such that you can no longer in nowadays point out that this is a Hebrew.
Bayiqeda nenkolo kaJehova ngoba ngaphandle kwalamaJuda aye emhlophe inkolo kaJehova yaphela.
They also abolished God's religion apart from the Jews that were white people. God's faith is no more, or was no more.
Lokhu uqeda isizwe samaHebheru nenkolo yamaHebheru kwenziwa ngamaCreed.
The abolishing of the Hebrew faith and destroying the Hebrew nation was done through creeds.
And ngijwayele ukuthi ngifunde iCreed le eqoqa yonke amaCreed ukuthi inkolo kaJehova nesizwe samaHebheru saqedwa kanjani.
I usually read for you the creeds, and it clearly explains how God's belief system and the nation of the Hebrews was destroyed.
Ngifisa uba interpreter eyifunde ngesingisi njengoba yayibhaliwe mina ngiyihumusha.
I'll ask the interpreter to read it in English, and then I'll read it in isiZulu. All Christian leaders had to declare this creed to become part of the Constantine Christian religion, the religion of Jesus. I renounce all customs, rites, legalisms, unleavened breads, and sacrifices of lambs of the Hebrews and all the other feasts.
Ngizocela ukuthi uqale phansi ufunde nje slowly so that abantu bezwe ukuthi kwathiwani.
All Christian leaders had to declare this creed to become part of Constantine Christian religion, the religion of Jesus. I renounce all customs, rites, legalisms, unleavened breads, and sacrifices of lambs of the Hebrews, and all the other feasts of the Hebrews, sacrifices, prayers, aspirations, purification, sanctifications and propitiation, and fasts and new moons and Sabbaths, and superstitions and hymns and chants and observances and synagogues, absolutely everything Jewish, every law, rite and custom, and if afterwards I shall wish to deny and return to Jewish superstition, or shall be found eating with Jews, or feasting with them, or secretly conversing and condemning the Christian religion, instead of openly confuting them and condemning their vain faith, then let the trembling of Cain and the leprosy of Gehazi cleave to me, as well as the legal punishments to which I acknowledge myself liable, and may I be an enigma in the world to come, and may my soul be set down with Satan and the devils.
Ngiyabonga. NgesiZulu uma uyihumusha lenkulumo ithi ngichitha nayo yonke imikhosi yamaHebheru, iminikelo, imithandazo, injongo, ukulinda, ukuzila, ukuzingcwelisa kanye nokudumisa kwabo. Ukuzila kwabo, imikhosi yokweshwama, amasabatha, nenkoloze, amahubo, nezaga, nokuya kwabo ukuyokhoza emathempelini. Mina ngokwami ngithi angikufisi nakancane ukuthi kube khona ukubuya kule nkoloze yamaJuda, noma ukutholakala ngidla namaJuda, noma ngenza imikhosi kanye nabo, noma ngandlela thile kukhulunywa nabo, ngasese kuphikiswana noma kugxekwa inkolo yobuKristu. Kunalokho uma kukhona ukukhuluma nabo kufanele kube ukuthi bayatshelwa ngokusobala ukuthi bashiye lo msangano wabo wenkolo yamaJuda. Uma eke wabakhona otholakala enza lokho noma yimina uqobo, ngiyacela isiqalekiso sikaKhayini noma isifo sobulephero bukaGehazi sivele sehlele kimi ngaso leso sikhathi. Noma nhloboni yesijeziso sokwephula umthetho ngiyasemukela njengesingifanele. Kanjalo futhi mangingamukeleki nasezweni elizayo likamoya, nomoya wami ulahlelwe kuSathane nombuso wakhe. Ngamanye amazwi le creed yaye iqeda yonke inkolo nabo bonke ubuzwe.
In other words, this creed seeked to destroy the whole belief system of the Hebrews and the nationality of Hebrews.
Lona kwakumthetho obekelwe ngisho amaHebheru ukuthi uma eke alandela lenkolo yawo ufanele ukuthi ebulawe.
This was a law that was even forced on to the Hebrews, that if they follow their belief system, they must be killed
or persecuted. And vele babulawa.
And they were persecuted.
Kwaqedwa namasabatha, kwaqedwa yonke into nje ephathelene noHebheru.
And the Shabbats were also abolished, and everything that was Hebrew was abolished.
Nesizwe saqedwa.
And the nation of the Hebrews was destroyed.
Uma bebhala lapha bathi lena kwakuyinkolo kaJesu.
As they have written it down here, they say that this was the religion of Jesus.
Ngiyafisa ukuba abantu abamnyama bazi ukuthi ayikho into eUjesu ayikazi bekhona.
I wish black people to know that there has never existed a person called Jesus.
Emhlabeni kwakukhona uYeshua and ngenkathi amalokhuza amaJuda ayoshumayela ngoYeshua.
The person who existed on earth is Yeshua, and when the Judeans went out to preach, they went out to preach about Yeshua.
Nemibhala ababeyibhala ngoYeshua.
And everything that they wrote was about Yeshua.
Bekhuluma ngoJehova.
And they spoke about Yahweh.
Kodwa kwathi amaJuda enqotshwa kwase njoba siyifundile iCreed kwase kuthi yonke into ngisho amagama athinta amaHebheru achithwa.
And when the Judeans were conquered, as we had read in the Creed, everything that pertained to Hebrews was destroyed. That is inclusive of the names that were Hebrewic.
Igama likaJehova lakhishwa enkolweni yamaKristu.
The name of Yahweh was also abolished in the religion of Christians.
Yikho ungeke nje ulifice igama kwiNew Testament elikhuluma ngoJehova.
That is why you'll not find the name Yahweh in the New Testament.
Igama elithi Yeshua lakhishwa enkolweni yobuKristu.
The name Yeshua was also abolished in the Christian religion.
uYeshua kwaku umuntu engumHebheru ezalwa uMaria engiyiJuda.
Yeshua was a person who existed, who was a Hebrew, born of Mary, who was a Judean.
Babengayiba abelungu kwakungabantu abamnyama amaHebheru abantu abamnyama.
They were not white people, but they were African black people.
Kodwa kwathi kungena inkolo yobuKristu selikhishiwe leli gama elithi Yeshua. AmaKristu noma amaRomans ayiseqhamuka negama lawo elithi Jesus.
After the Christian religion was established, they obliterated the name Yeshua and created a new name of their own to replace Yeshua, which was Jesus.
Abagcinanga ngokushintsha igama kodwa babe sebakha isithombe sentaliyane basebelibiza lelo ntaliyane ngokuthi uJesu noma Jesus.
They not only ended with that, but they proceeded to creating an image of an Italian, and they named that Italian man as Jesus.
Ngalokho kuchaza ukuthi uJesu njengegama akakaze bekhona umuntu emhlabeni owayehamba ebizwa kuthiwa uJesu.
Therefore, that brings us to the conclusion that the name Jesus has never belonged to any one person who actually existed on earth.
Nomfanekiso wakhe lo esiufundayo akusiwona umfanekiso kaJesu lo owayehamba emhlabeni kodwa kwathathwa njena umfanekiso wentaliyane emva long time uJesu wahamba emhlabeni sekwaze kwehlulwa ngisho amaHebheru.
And the image that we see is not of the real Yeshua, but it is an image of an Italian man who was put up, and that happened a long time after Yeshua had passed away on earth and the Hebrews had been conquered in Jerusalem.
Ngakho-ke amaKristu akholelwa kulomlungu nama kulesi sithombe salomlungu ongakaze ebe khona kodwa owakhiwa.
Therefore, Christians believe in this image of a white man who has never actually existed, but it is an image that was created.
Ngiyafisa kuba abantu becacelwe ukuthi njengoba washo uDavid ukuthi bayoqeda isizwe uIsrael engabe sakhunjulwa saqedwa leso sizwe akuqedwanga inkolo kuphela kodwa kwaqedwa nesizwe.
I wish people to understand, as David had said, that they will destroy Israel as a nation. That did eventually happen. Not just the religious aspect of it, but the nation itself was destroyed.
Nanamhlanje asikho isizwe esikhumbula uIsrael.
And even today, there is not one nation that still remembers Israel.
Ayikho inkolo ekhumbula uIsrael.
There is no religion that remembers Israel.
So kwaya ngokusho kaDavid ukuthi inhloso ukuthi lingaphinde likhunjulwe igama lika Israel lena uNkulunkulu owakha ngayo lesi sizwe uNkulunkulu owakha ngaso inkolo yakhe.
So it was in accordance with the words of David that they should obliterate Israel, which God used to create his faith.
Ngake sengichaze kaningi ukuthi ngenkathi amaJuda enqotshwa ngo-70 AD abalekela eWest Africa, amanye abalekela eWest Africa.
I explained that when the Judeans had been conquered, some of them scattered out to West Africa.
Ngaze ngatshengisa imap lapha babehlala khona eWest Africa eyayibizwa kuthiwa iNegroland.
I showed you a map of that place which was called Negroland.
Ngoba bathi masebe hambile basebebizwa amaNegro.
Because when they had went out, they were then called Negroes.
Njengoba ngishilo ukuthi uJesu unguNazaretha, you read ufunda between the lines nokuthi lama Negro kwakungama Israelites ufunda uma usubheka imap yakho.
As I said, that Yeshua was a Nazarite is readable between the lines. You can read that between the lines, and that these people were in West Africa, were Judeans also. You only realize that when you actually study the map.
Ngoba le Negroland uma usuthi ufuna izakhamizi zakhona uthola kunombuso wamaJuda, Judah's kingdom.
Because when you study this land, you find that there is a kingdom of the Judeans amongst them.
Uthole kubalwa imizi yabantwana abaningi baka Israel.
And you realize that amongst them are the houses of Israel.
Bese uyamangala ukuthi abantwana bakwa Israel babeyofunana eWest Africa.
And you wonder what the children of Israel went out to West Africa for.
Kodwa bengasabizwa ukuthi ama-Israel sebebizwa kuthiwa ama-Negro, kuthiwa ama-Negroland.
But they were no longer called Israelites, they were called Negroes.
Lama Negro lena kwabe sekuhwebelana ngawo ehanjiswa emazweni amaningi ko-America ey'qhingini ey'ningi njengoba nazi ukuthi ama-Negro abazigqila kanjani.
These Negroes were then sold as slaves and scattered out to many different islands, as you know how Negroes ended up as slaves.
Kodwa lawo ma-Negro lawo kwakungama-Israelites.
But those Negroes were Israelites.
Abanye abantwana bakwa-Israel abazange baya West Africa, banqabula iSahara baze bafika lapha eSouth Africa.
Some of the children of Israel did not journey out to West Africa, but they crossed the Sahara and eventually came to South Africa.
Izwe lase-South Africa lakhiwe abantwana bakwa-Israel iningi labo.
Most of the black people in South Africa are the children of Israel.
Kukhona ke into eyayidide abantu ngendaba yeBhayibheli.
There's something that confuses people when it comes to the Bible.
Isizwe sakwa-Israyeli nenkolo yakwa-Israyeli yaqedwa ukuyiqeda impela, yaqedwa uConstantine.
The religion or the belief system and the nation of Israelites were totally destroyed by Constantine the Great.
uConstantine, isikhathi sikaConstantine sisukela ko-300 AD.
The era of Constantine the Great is from around 300 AD onwards.
Kodwa iBhayibheli labhalwa kusukela ko-600 AD.
But the Bible was compiled as from 600 AD.
Ama-Romans noma ama-Christians ngenkathi ehlanganisa iBhayibheli balihlanganisa ngey'ncwadi zamaHebheru.
When the Romans or Christians were compiling the Bible, they compiled it using the books of the Hebrews.
Kodwa lezi ncwadi zamaHebheru bazi-editha, bazibhala, bazifaka, bazenza, bazi-editha ngendlela ukuthi zihambelane nenkolo abasebeyakhile.
But they edited these books so that it could go in par with the religion that they had created.
Definitely inkolo yamaHebheru yayikhuluma ngoJehova.
Definitely the belief system of the Hebrews spoke about Yahweh.
Kodwa imibhalo eyayisifaka kwi-New Testament yayisikhiphile igama likaJehova.
But the books which were canonized into the New Testament had taken out the name of Yahweh.
Imibhalo yamaHebheru yayifaka igama likaYeshua.
The writings of the Hebrews were inclusive of the name Yeshua.
Kodwa njengoba sazi igama elithi Jesus laqala la kwathiwa uIsus lisiGreek laselishintshwa liba isiLatin. Lenzeka vele amaHebheru asanqoqa.
But as we know, the name Jesus has its etymology from the language of the Greeks, and it was then translated to Latin, and that happened after a very long time that the Hebrews had been conquered.
Ngakho-ke leli gama elithi Yeshua lakhishwa embhalweni kwase kufakwa leli elithi Jesus.
Therefore, the name Yeshua was taken out from the writings, and they put the name Jesus.
Uma uthatha i-edition ka-1600, igama elibhaliwe lapha lithi Isus.
The edition from the 1600s has a name written which is Isus.
Isus, no Isus.
Isus,
Okwase kuyisiLatin.
which is Latin.
Kodwa kuhamba lakhishwa ngoba ekuqaleni uJ wayengekho. Uthe masefaka uJ wasethiwa Jesus.
But eventually it was changed, and the letter J had not been in existence at that time, and when the letter J came into existence, it then became Jesus.
Nemibhalo eminingi yamaHebheru ya-edithwa, enye kwa-edwa izinto ey'ngakaze zibe khona.
And many writings of the Hebrews was edited, and they added things that had never been there.
Le nkulumo ethi uJesu wayindodana ezelwe iyodwa kaNkulunkulu yayingekho ngisho beqala ukubhala iBhayibheli ngesiGreek, i-first edition yesiGreek yayingekho ukuthi uJesu uyindodana ezelwe iyodwa kaNkulunkulu.
The saying that Jesus, the only begotten Son of God, was not there. Even in the first editions of the Greek Bible, it was not there, but it was later added.
bayifaka ukuze ihambelane nenkolo yabo.
They added it so that it could be conducive to their own religion.
Okokuqala inkolo yamaRoma noma inkolo yobuKristu yayichitha inkolo yamaJuda ngangokuthi bathi uJehova isithixo samaJuda.
Such that the Romans had destroyed the religion or belief system of God to the extent that Yahweh was called an idol of the Jews.
Lo Jesu okhulunywa ngaye kwangasiyena uYeshua kodwa kwakuJesus wenye inkolo.
The Jesus that is spoken about today was not Yeshua, but it was a Jesus that belonged to another religion.
Isizathu sokuthi kuthiwa ozelwe eyedwa ukuthi kwakwenzelwa ukuthi kufithwe enkolweni yaseBhabhiloni.
The reason why it says the only begotten Son is so that it could fit into the religion of the Babylonians.
Le nkolo yaseBhabhiloni kwakukhona uSeramitsi owazalwa uThamud kodwa owaganana nendodana yakhe akuyena uThamud uNimrod okwakuyi uNimrod waye eyindodana kaSeramis kodwa waganwa unina.
This Babylon religion had a son called Nimrod, and that young man or boy married his mom.
Kodwa uNimrod waze wahamba emhlabeni engazange wamthola umntwana kunina.
But he died having gotten no son from his mother.
Wathi mayesefile waziwa ngokuthi uNkulunkulu.
And when he had died, he was later known as being God.
Uhlala elangeni.
He lives in the sun.
Kodwa uthena esefile uSeramitsi wayesezala uThamud.
And when he had passed away or died, he then gave birth to Thamud.
Kwasekuthiwa ke uThamud uzalwe uNimrod eseselangeni wamzala ngomsebe yelanga.
Then Nimrod was said to have given birth to Thamud through the rays of the sun.
uThamud uyona kuphela indodana eyazalwa ngokusho kwalenkolo uNimrod esewafa kodwa imzala ngomsebelanga uyena yedwa wayindodana kaThamud naye wabizwa kuthiwa uyindodana kaNkulunkulu ngoba uNimrod wayenguNkulunkulu.
And according to this religion, Thamud is the only begotten son of Nimrod, and he was then called the son of God because his father Nimrod was known as God, and he had given birth to Thamud through the rays of the sun.
Kwasekuthiwa ke uThamud indodana eyodwa kaNkulunkulu.
Therefore Thamud was known as the only begotten son of God.
Kwasekuthiwa ke uJesu njengoba eyindodana kaNkulunkulu uyindodana eyodwa kaNkulunkulu kwasekushintshwa lo nkulunkulu oJehova esekuwa uNkulunkulu sekushiwa uNimrod ngoba kwaba nomthetho ukuthi wonke amasiko amaRoma asethathwa iChristianity.
So therefore as Thamud was the only begotten son of Nimrod, that attribute was then given to Jesus, because there had been a law that everything that was Jewish would take on what is conducive to the Roman religion.
Njengoba sazi uNkulunkulu oJehova akaze kuthiwa uyazala.
As we know, the God which is Yahweh does not beget.
Njengoba sazi uNkulunkulu oJehova unengilosi ezizigidi zilwini.
As we know, the God named Yahweh has millions of angels in heaven.
So leli gama lokuthi uJesu indodana yodwa lalifitha inkolo yamaBabylon yamaBabylons.
So this saying that Jesus, the only begotten Son of God, fit and was conducive to the Roman religion.
Akucinanga lapho leli lokhu ukuthi uJesu waba umNazaretha ngoba wakhulela eNazaretha kwangasilona iqiniso la.
It not only ended with that, saying that Yeshua was a Nazarite because he grew up in Nazareth is not true.
Lokho kwakwenzelwa ukuthi leli gama elithi waye umNazaretha ngoba kuyigama lamaJuda lingathuli.
So they did that so that they would deter people from knowing that he was a Nazarene because he was from the nation of Judeans.
Nalokhu ukuthi uJesu wavuka ngosuku lesithathu nangokuthi uJona wahlala eswini sikafishi insuku ezintathu kwakulona iqiniso.
And saying that Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days, and that John was in the whale's belly for 3 days is also something that was fabricated. It was conjured up by them.
Kwakhiwa ukuze ushintshwe isabatha lisiwe kwisonto.
They created that so that they could change the Shabbat and move it to the day of the sun, which is Sunday.
Ngayifunda kakhulu incwadi yamaHebheru ebizwa kuthiwa the Gospel of the Nazarenes, lapho uJerome owahumusha khona uMathewu.
I read the book of the Hebrews, which is known as the Gospel of the Hebrews, very intensively, which was translated by Jerome.
uJerome waye Italian noma Roman.
Jerome was an Italian, or otherwise known as a Roman.
uJerome uyena owaye engenkathi translator lento owayeshintsha zonke izinto abathi mabembuza wathi cha phela bekufanele ukuthi eyishintshe ukuze ihambelane nenkolo ekhona.
Jerome is the one who changed everything, and when he was asked, he said that he had to do it so that it was in par with the religion that existed.
Kuyishwa-ke ukuthi yonke into ngobuKristu esicabanga ukuthi siyayazi akuyona lena ngokomlando eyiqiniso.
It is unfortunate that everything that we know about Christianity is not what is historically true.
Okuyiqiniso ukuthi inkolo yethu nobuzwe bethu baqedwa amaRomans ayibiza ukuthi amaKristu.
What is true is that our the nation of the Hebrews and our belief system was destroyed by Christians who were also known as the Romans.
Bathema sebabulele onke amaJuda kwasekuthi thina esizalwa muva satshelwa ukuthi amaHebheru aduka.
And when they had destroyed our forefathers, their progeny was then educated, or it was instilled in us that the Hebrews are a lost people.
Ukuze singakwazi nje ukuba silandele umlando wethu wenkolo nawubuzwe.
So that we may not be able to follow the history of our religion and our nationality.
Ngokungazi ukuthi ubuKristu baqeda ubuNazaretha kwasekuthi thina siyokholwa kubuKristu, siyokholwa kulenkolo eyaqeda inkolo yethu, siyokholwa kulenkolo eyaqeda okhokho bethu.
Out of ignorance, we then we then converted to Christianity, the very same Christianity which destroyed our belief and religious systems, the very same Christianity that destroyed and persecuted our forefathers.
Saba brainwashed ngendlela ukuthi namhlanje na umuntu ongumKristu ukwazi ukuthi ephike ukuthi ungumIsrael ephike nenkolo yakhe yobuNazaretha.
We were so brainwashed that people who are Christians refute the fact that they are Hebrews, and they refute the fact that we were initially Nazarites.
Ngike ngafunda ku Facebook ngibona omunye umuntu omnyama ehambe ephethe iflag lamabhunu efake nengubo le uniform yo tereblanche ethi akayiqedwe ukubulawa akangabulawa ama-farmers.
On Facebook I saw a video of a man who had a placard and who was carrying a flag of the Boers, and he was saying that farmers should not be killed. He was wearing the same outfits that Telebranch wore.
Le uniform yokhakhi.
The khaki uniforms.
Intatheli yayise ihlangana naye simbuza igama ukuthi ubani wasezisho igama lakhe.
The person interviewing him then asked him what is his name, and he told him.
Wayesethi intatheli hawu kanti uyakwazi ukukhuluma isiZulu bengithi bengithi umlungu ngoba ngikubona uphethe iflag labelungu ufake ne-uniform yokhakhi yamabhunu.
And the interviewer then said, "Oh, you are able to speak your vernacular language. I was confused by how you wore the same uniform of the Boers, and you had a flag of the Boers."
Ambuza intatheli yambuza ukuthi uyalazi ukuthi leli flag alisasebenzi.
He then asked him, "Do you know that this flag is no longer allowed in South Africa, as it is not a representation of South Africa anymore?"
Lento ebenziwa ilomuntu intshengisa indlela abantu abamnyama abakwazi ukubrainwashwa ngayo bephenduke bebe izitha zabanye abantu abamnyama.
What was being done by this black man clearly shows the extent in which black people can be brainwashed such that they become the enemies of other black people.
Laba belungu bamafama bathatha umuntu wabo omnyama bathi bamphathisa iflag lamabhunu lathi akahambe memezela ukuthi ama-farmers akangabulawa kuwumuntu omnyama ephethe iflag lamabhunu.
This brainwashed black person was taken by the Boers, and they had given him a flag, and they said that he must go around the streets saying that Boers should not be killed or assassinated or murdered.
So yona nto ke abelungu abayenzayo kithi bafike babulala inkolo yethu, babulala okhokho bethu, basebesithatha thina besenza amaKristu ukuthi silwe thina nenkolo yethu.
So that is the exact same thing that was done by the Romans. They firstly destroyed our belief systems, and they persecuted our ancestors, converted us into Christians, and then after we had become converts, we then fought against what was ours.
Kuthathe iminyaka e-1843 ukuthi uNkulunkulu ebuyise ubuNazaretha esizweni sama-Israel.
It took 1,843 years for God to bring back the Nazarite faith to the nation of Israel.
Waletha umprofeti, wayesemema umprofeti entabeni yaseNhlangakazi ngo-1913 lapho umprofeti owalanda khona ubuNazaretha.
He brought down a prophet Isaiah Shembe and called prophet Isaiah Shembe upon Mount Tlangagazi, and that is where the prophet had to go to fetch this Nazarite faith again.
Leyo nto ibalulekile ngoba amaNazaretha yize ephethe into ebaluleke kangaka. Akazi ukuthi uNazaretha yini. Babecabanga ukuthi uNazaretha yibandla nje elaqanjwa uShembe.
That is something that is imperative, because despite the Nazarites having something so precious and being custodians of it, they do not understand what the Nazarite faith is. They just think that it is a church which was founded by Prophet Isaiah Shembe.
Engijabulisile intshumayelo kaMfundisi uMhlongo ekuseni lapho ebechaza khona ukuthi okuseqinisweni uShembe umprofeti wathuma uNkulunkulu.
I was happy about today's sermon by Reverend Mhlongo, which clearly explained that Shembe is a prophet that was sent by God.
Ngoba uMhlongo ubengasusi into eyicabangayo kodwa ukhuluma into esayifundiswa uyena uShembe.
Because he was not speaking his own thoughts, but he was speaking what was taught to us about by Prophet Isaiah Shembe.
UNazaretha njengenkolo kaJehova kwabuyiswa lapha emhlabeni umprofeti uIsaiah Shembe uthula kuNkulunkulu.
The Nazarite faith as a faith of Yahweh was brought to us or rekindled by the prophet Isaiah Shembe, peace be upon him.
Uma ufunda incwadi kaMyando ethi izintshumayelo zenkosi ilanga ku page 86, ubaba ilanga wakhuluma kanje ukuchaza ukuthi uNazaretha akusiyona into eqale ngoShembe.
When you read the book of Nyando on page 86, which is titled The Sermons of Lord Ilanga, or J.G. Shembe, peace be upon him, the second, it says,
uNazaretha akuqali ukufika emhlabeni kade bafika.
It is not the first time that the Nazarite faith has come upon the earth. It has been in existence for a long time.
Nako Mose nako Jesu nakubaprofeti kwafika behluleka.
It came during the time of Moses, Yeshua and the prophets, but they failed.
Ukuthi nje ubaba ilanga echaze ukuthi uNazaretha bafika noMose. Kusho yonke into ukuthi uNazaretha ngokaJehova.
For Shembe II to explain that the Nazarite faith came during the time of Moses is self-explanatory that the Nazarite faith belongs to Yahweh.
Ngingakafiki lapho angisale sengiqedela le nkulumo kaBaba. Uthi-ke ubaba ilanga afike lo ofikayo abuphembe njengoShembe nje bese kuthi labo abalandelayo behluleke bangabugcini uNazaretha.
One would come to rekindle it, and those who would follow would fail to keep it.
Njengoba kwenzeka nje ubaba ilanga wayesho into esiyenzeka nje.
Just as it is happening now, what Shembe II was saying is something that is being unfolded now.
Yonke into othi uyayichaza ngobuNazaretha kuqhamuka amaNazaretha elwe nawe ngakho.
Whatever you explain or teach about the Nazarite faith, you are then faced with Nazarites that come against you.
AmaNazaretha akafuni ukuthi kuthiwe ubuNazaretha inkolo kaJehova. Bafuna ukuthi kuthiwa inkolo yakwaShembe.
The Nazarites are against us saying that the Nazarite faith belongs to Yahweh, but they want us to say that it is a faith that belongs to the family of Shembe.
Ngangokuthi baze becasuke ukuthi uphike ukuthi akakho omunye uNkulunkulu ngaphandle kaJehova. Kuphikwa abantu abangamaNazaretha okufanele leyo nto bayifundise umhlaba.
Such that they are the ones who come against you for saying that there is no other God beside Yahweh, yet they are the ones who should be the custodians of that teaching and teaching it to the rest of the world.
Okuseqinisweni kuningi kakhulu okufanele sikufundise umhlaba ngobuNazaretha noJehova, kodwa sithikamezwa abantu abakule nkolo.
In truth, there is so much that we should be teaching the world about the Nazarite faith and Yahweh, but we are being disturbed or hindered by the people who are part of this faith, which are Nazarites.
KunamaNazaretha ayengihlasele ngokuba ngithi u-Isaiah Shembe umprofeti, bengafuni ukuthi umprofeti. Uma ubuza ukuthi uyini bengakwazi ukunikeza igama ngoba bafuna ukuthi uthi uNkulunkulu.
There are Nazarites that attack me for saying that Isaiah Shembe is a prophet, and when you ask them, then what is he? They cannot give a definition because they want to say that he is God.
Yini eyenza ukuthi befuna ukuthi uShembe uNkulunkulu laba abaholi bamanje? Kungenxa yokuthi leli gama elithi uShembe libuye libe isibongo bese nabo bengena phakathi.
The reason why the current leaders of this faith want this name Shembe to be God, because they are also, this name Shembe is also a surname, and if the name Shembe becomes God, they also form part of being gods.
That's why njengamanje sesinoNkulunkulu kubaholi bakwaShembe.
That is why amongst the leaders of Shembe, of the Shembe family, we have one that is a god.
Kodwa asikwazi ukuthi sivume into enjalo, asikwazi ukuthi kubulawe inkolo kaNkulunkulu ngabantu ngoba behluke uNkulunkulu.
But we cannot but we cannot allow that to happen. But we cannot allow that to happen for people to say that Shembe is God just because they have forsaken God. But we cannot allow that to happen just because they are people who have forsaken God.
Page 218 wale ncwadi kaMnyandu ubaba ilanga wakhuluma lamazwi.
In page 218 of Mnyandu's book, Shembe II spoke these words.
Ngicabange ukuthi uNkulunkulu uthini kithi thina abantu base-Afrika. Likhona yini mhlawumbe izwi kuye elithi sengiyazisola ngoba ngathi uma uShembe Afrika abantu abazange bamnake. Sengiyazisola ukuthi ngathi uma umuntu wami kwaZulu kodwa abakwaZulu abazange bamnake. Sengiyazisola ukuthi ngathi uma isithunywa sami uShembe emampondweni abasemampondweni abazange basinake.
I always think about what God has to say. I always think about what God has to say about us, the people of Africa. Is there a word in him that says, I regret myself for sending Shembe to Africa, yet people took no regard of him. I regret sending my servant to the house of KwaZulu, yet the people of KwaZulu took no regard of him. I regret sending my servant to Emampondweni, and the people from Emampondweni took no regard of him. These words were spoken by Shembe II.
Kodwa manje sekufanele ukuthi thina silokhu silwa sichaza ukuthi uShembe umprofeti siphikizwa amaNazaretha.
Now we have got to constantly be fighting against Nazarites when we say that Isaiah Shembe was a prophet, and that is being disputed by people who are Nazarites.
ngiyafisa ke kuba ngichaze ukuthi ubuNazaretha ngokaJehova.
I wish to explain that the Nazareth faith belongs to Yahweh.
ubuNazaretha budala ushembe ufike wazokuvusa ngoba uqedwe ngamaKristu.
That the Nazareth faith is an old faith, and Prophet Isaiah Shembe has came to refound it as it was destroyed by Christians.
And awukwazi ukuthi ube senkolweni ongawazi umlando wayo kodwa uthi uhlakaniphile uzungena enkolweni ongawazi umlando wayo ukuthi yasuka kanjani.
And you cannot become part of a religion whose history you do not understand. If you are intelligent, then you must understand the history of that religion.
Ngeshwa ayikho indlela yokuthi sichaze umlando wamaNazaretha ngaphandle ukuthi sichaze ukuthi wabhujiswa ngamaKristu ngoba that is a historical fact.
Unfortunately, there is no way for us to teach the history of the Nazarites and yet not teach that it was destroyed by Christians.
Ngiyazi ukuthi amaKristu aphatheka kabi kodwa asikwazi ukushintsha lokho ngoba kuwumlando.
I am aware that Christians do not like that, but we cannot change it because it is a historical fact.
Awukwazi ukuthi ungachaza umlando waseSouth Africa ungachazi ukuthi saphila kwisikhathi seapartheid nokuthi kwiapartheid kwenzekani.
You cannot explain the history of South Africa and not make mention of the apartheid era and what transpired during that era.
Siyazi ukuthi abelungu baphatheka kabi ngalokho kodwa ayikho indlela esingayenza because kuwumlando.
We are aware that the white people do not like that, but there is no other way because that is a historical fact.
ubuNazaretha ngokaNkulunkulu uma ufunda incwadi kaDeuteronomy 6 verse 13 to 15 ikhuluma kanje.
The Nazareth faith is God's, and if you read the book of Deuteronomy 6
verse 13 to 15
verse 13 to 15, it says,
Womesaba uJehova uNkulunkulu wakho wokhonza yena ufunge igama lakhe anikulandela abanye onkulunkulu babantu abanizungezayo ngokuba uJehova uNkulunkulu wakho ophakathi kwakho unguNkulunkulu onomhawu. Funa intukuthelo kaJehova uNkulunkulu wakho ikuvuthele ikuchithe ebusweni bomhlaba.
Fear the Lord your God, serve him only, and take your oaths in his name. Do not follow other gods, the gods of the people around you. For the Lord your God, who is among you, is a jealous God, and his anger will burn against you, and he will destroy you from the face of the land.
Kuyimfundiso yobuNazaretha, kuyimfundiso yenkolo kaJehova ukuthi asingeke sibe nomunye uNkulunkulu ngaphandle kwaJehova.
It is the teaching of the Nazareth faith, and it is the teaching of Yahweh, that we cannot have any other God besides Yahweh.
Ushembe umprofeti ku-verse 3 womthandazo wesabatha uthi mesabeni uJehova zukulwane ngezizukulwane nigcine imithetho yakhe owalilobela yona uJehova inceku yakhe uMose ukuze kudumisa kwenu kwamkeleke kuThixo uNkosi.
In the third verse of the Shabbat prayer, Prophet Isaiah Shembe says that fear the Lord and keep his commands. Because if you do not do that, he will not listen, he will not accept your prayers, and he will not bless you.
Kuyimfundiso yobuNazaretha ukuthi asesabe uJehova.
It is the teaching of the Nazareth faith that we should fear God.
Silandele imithetho uJehova owayinikeza uMose.
And follow the laws that Yahweh had gave to Moshe.
Ngoba uma singakwenzi lokho uNkulunkulu akawukwamukela ukukholwa kwethu.
Because if we do not do that, Yahweh will not accept our worship.
Kodwa kuyisho ukuthi njengamanje na abantu abalwa nalenkolo kaJehova amaNazaretha.
Yet it is unfortunate that the people who are rebelling against the belief system of Yahweh are Nazarites.
Okuseqinisweni amaKristu amaningi asalizwa leli vangeli ngoba wona ayingazi ukuthi indaba kaNkulunkulu ihamba kanjani.
In reality, many Christians now understand these teachings because they were not aware that this is how things are.
Angakufuni lokho ilana angama-fanatics noma lana abona ukuthi uma ebuyela kuNkolo kaJehova bazolahlekelwa into ethize ngoba babe bakhulu ngamanga.
The Christians that do not accept these teachings are those who are fanatics and those who hold firmly to Christianity because they know that it is that fake or fabricated religion that made them receive praises or appraisal.
Kuyisicelo sami ukuthi asisukume sivuselele lenkolo kaJehova njengoba yayinjalo eyinikeza uMose.
It is my plea that we all stand in unification and revive this belief system of Yahweh as he handed it down to Moshe.
Kuyisicelo sami ukuthi asiqhube sivuselele siqhube lenkolo kaJehova njengoba yafike yavuselelwa umprofeti uIsaiah Shembe ukuthula kube kuye lapha eSouth Africa.
It is my plea that we revive it and continue reviving it as it was done by Prophet Isaiah Shembe here in South Africa.
Kulukhulu kabi ukuthi lenkolo uzokwazi ukuyishumayela emazweni uma thina amaNazaretha sisaphikisana ngeimfundiso zomprofeti uIsaiah Shembe.
It would be a very challenging task to teach about this Nazarite faith to other nations whilst we, the Nazarites, are fighting and disputing about the teachings of Prophet Isaiah Shembe and the Nazarite faith.
Lokho sikwenza kube inhlekisa sizenza inhlekisa emhlabeni.
We are putting ourselves out as a laughing stock in the world.
Asibheke enkosini. uNkulunkulu wakhokho bethu. uNkulunkulu wenceku yakho uMose. uNkulunkulu wenceku yakho uJesu. uNkulunkulu wenceku yakho uShembe. Phambi kwakho Nkosi ngaleli sabatha lakho owaligcina usesezulwini singakazi kudalwa. Wathi noma mhla uletha inkolo yakho wasinikela lona. Sicela ke Nkosi uba usifundise ukuthi ligcinwa kanjani. Ube phakathi kwethu ngaso sonke isikhathi. Sicela Nkosi kuba lenkolo yakho eyaqedwa ngabezizwe wayivusa ngomprofeti wakho, umprofeti Isaiah. Sicela Nkosi kuba ingacini. Ubunazaretha Nkosi buvuke. Ubunazaretha Nkosi kugcwale umhlaba. Ubunazaretha Nkosi ingababikho Nkosi into eyobandle njengobunazaretha. Siyazi Nkosi ukuthi ubunazaretha bunezitha eziningi. Kodwa izitha ezimbi kakhulu ngeseyivuke kuleli bandla. Lapho okunamabandla akunaManazaretha khona alwa nalenkolo yakho. Ethi asilandele inkolo yabo esilahlisayo. Ezosenza Nkosi sibe sesihogweni. Sicela Nkosi usiphe isibindi. Usiphe Nkosi kumela iqiniso noma ngabe sekunjani. Singavumi Nkosi ukuba inkolo yakho iqedwe ngabantu asebethunjwe uSathane. Senze uNkulunkulu wasekuphameni ukuba leli vangeli Nkosi lobuNazaretha, leli vangeli likaJehova ligcwale umhlaba wonke. Abantu beqonde ukuthi akakho omunye uNkulunkulu ngaphandle kwaJehova, iNkosi yezulu nomhlaba. Sicela Nkosi kuba bonke abantu beyiqonde leyonto. Noma bangamaNazaretha, noma bangamaKristu, noma bangamaMoslems, noma bangamaJuda, noma bayinkolo yomdabu, kodwa bazi ukuthi umdali wezulu nomhlaba uJehova. Leli gama Nkosi malisatshwe yibo bonke abantu emhlabeni wonke. Imithetho yakho Nkosi mayibuyele igcinwe emhlabeni njengoba igcinwa ezulwini. Ngelakho Nkosi igama manje lephathe. Amen.